Hey, it's William Christopher Ford, and welcome to this episode of 52 Masters. In this installment, we have Sensei Joshua Loya. Now, this is a really interesting guy because when he was about 15 years old, he actually lost his sight in a martial arts accident. And despite that, he actually went on and earned his black belt, and he is now teaching today. So today, he's going to work with me on how to teach people who are visually impaired. So that being said, let's get to training. I am 51 years old. I've been a practitioner of Okinawan Shorin-ryu karate since I was 7. There was some who would call me a master. I assure you, I am not. I believe that the true expert is someone who still has a student's heart and a beginner's mind. This year, to celebrate turning 52, I'm setting out to learn from 52 other disciplines, each from its own master. Some things I've tried before, others I'm a first-day beginner like anyone else. 52 weeks, 52 new skills. I'm William Christopher Ford, and this is 52 Masters. Okay, so we are here with Sensei Joshua Loya today. He came all the way from La Mesa, California. Thank you so much for coming down, sir.
Gladly. Pleasure.
Very honored to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Let me give you a little bit about a background about Sensei. He is actually blind. He cannot see. He had an injury when he was about 15 years old, which we're going to talk about later in the interview portion. But what I thought would be really cool is if I learn from you today as somebody who cannot see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the white belt that I normally use in other episodes, and I'm just going to cover my eyes with it, and we'll just proceed from there. And I'm putting it on now, guys. There's no reason for me to peek, so I am going to close my eyes. I know some of you are going to be writing like, well, he's really not, he's peeking, and there's no reason for me to do that, guys.
I'll be watching.
Okay. So I'm going to do this. And forgive my improper belt tying technique, but I just want to make sure it's snug. Okay, there we go. And I cannot see anything, so and my eyes are going to be closed, so we're good to go. So Sensei, what are we going to work on today?
All right. Well, so the when you're talking about somebody who is totally blind, especially, yes, we can hear things a little bit if it's a quiet. Like right now, we have a fairly closed, quiet environment, everything's fine, right?
Yes.
If I put my hand here, you can hear that.
Yes.
You can hear. But what happens when we go into a crowded bar, crowded nightclub? What happens to your sense of hearing, your ability to use it? So we're not going to focus on your sense of hearing. We're going to focus on your kinesthetic sense. And in particular, in Tech Jiu-Jitsu, the adaptive martial arts program that I teach and also train in particular, we focus on connection. And so we're going to focus on some things where even your sound doesn't matter, your ability to hear doesn't matter, and obviously your sense of eyesight is largely irrelevant.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have you face me.
Okay.
All right. I want you to reach up and I want you to find my shoulders.
Okay.
There you go. Just relax. Find my shoulders.
Okay.
So the idea, and go ahead and drop it back down again. We'll start there. So let's say somebody kind of comes up and maybe they're woofing you a little bit. They're trying to intimidate. It's like, what's up? And they kind of bump into you. Mm-hmm. You can go ahead and reach up and immediately find their shoulders. Right?
Right.
Because do you want to start a fight when there doesn't need to be one?
No.
Clearly not. Right? Because what if it's, like the case of mistaken identity, or they want to help you. Sir, you need help? Let me help you across the street.
Right.
You don't want to deck somebody because they're trying to help you.
Right.
Right. Obviously, sometimes people grab you and it's unwanted, and even if they mean well. So you do want to protect yourself in case it goes that direction, but you don't want to bring the fight when there doesn't need to be one. So the first thing we're going to do is I want you to reach up and find my shoulders. All right. Okay. And go ahead now and slide down your hands down my arm so you can find my biceps. Just kind of loose hands. A little bit, and go ahead and close that thumb because I don't want you to jam your thumb, because if you go in, you could really jam your thumb there. So keep the, almost like monkey hands.
Monkey grip.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just kind of drop those elbows so it's nice and loose. So there you go. So that, and slide your left hand up so you can right on my bicep. So the first level is you're not going to stand like this, but if you drop from the shoulders down to the biceps, if I move my hand, if I go to hit, you can kind of feel where those, you right?
Yes.
And now obviously you're not going to just stay there, but this means that if you drop down there and they are meaning to do you harm, you can adjust, right?
Yes, sir.
So from there, so let's go ahead and back up. We'll start all over again.
Okay.
And I'm going to do something silly that Shian Mario has taught me. He uses kind of silly nicknames and things like that. So it doesn't have to be blue or swearing or anything like that. So I'll borrow from him and I'll come up to you and say, "What's up, pumpkin face?" And you reach up, and your instinct is to put your shoulders up on your hands up on my shoulders and say, "Stop! You make me feel uncomfortable."
Okay.
Right? So it's just basic verbal self-defense, and most people, as goofy as it sounds, they're not going to hear that assertive thing. So, "Stop! You make me feel uncomfortable." Now go ahead and slide down and find my biceps.
Stop! You make me feel uncomfortable.
All right, slide down. Good. And if I'm getting more aggressive, then I want you to go ahead and slide with your dominant hand.
I'm born a left-hander, but I became a right-hander after my arm was broken. So.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll slide down with your left hand down to my wrist, all the way down, and good. And now slide this hand across and cut my elbow underneath. Good. All right, and then nice and loose. Good. Now go ahead and push this one in, and then you're going to slide back to an arm drag. We'll see how you do, and if you need me to do it on you, then we'll do that from there.
Okay.
So, good. Fairly good. All right, so that could work. Now, one of the things with that is that's still kind of an aggressive posture, so I'm going to go ahead and back up, and I'm going to have you pretend to be the bad guy.
Okay.
So if you're here, so that just means like you're whooping me, you're kind of crowding my space.
What's up, pumpkin face?
So you're nice to keep it loose. So stop, you make me feel uncomfortable. And you're like, you might still be a little bit aggressive here. Right, I'm going to slide down here. I'm going to very loosely step behind you. And then I'm going to come around, and maybe you're just some drunk guy.
Right.
And it's like, hey, let's make our way home. Let's
Okay.
make our way home. Because right here, if my hand, here, go ahead and try to hit me with your left hand. Right?
Yes.
I'm here.
Uh-huh.
And even if you do hit me, go ahead and feel what's in the way.
It's
It's my head.
Yeah.
Especially if you're right here.
Yeah.
Right?
So it might actually hurt
You
my
might
hand.
hurt your hand,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
So and even if you start to go to punch, I can get you back.
Oh, nice.
Right? And it's all based on feeling. What happens if you break connection? Do you have any idea where I am?
No, I do not.
Right. And that's the big thing when you're talking applicable self-defense. There's nothing wrong with a totally blind person learning a kata, learning spinning kicks, learning all that kind of stuff. That's good for development. It's good for larger holistic martial arts education. But in terms of applicable techniques, we need to make sure we maintain that connection as much as possible. Pretend I'm like a drunk guy and you're walking me home from the party. Okay. Just come with me, right? And you can even say, "Are we cool? Are we cool? Are we cool?" All right. And
We cool, man?
All right. Good. Good. And if I start to move, then you got that. Now, respectfully, you have this sort of. A lot of people do this when they start doing things blindfolded and very stiff.
Yeah.
Stiff.
Well,
So
this
go ahead.
is I'm pretty nervous right now, to be honest, because I feel like I feel like I'm gonna fall, and so yeah, it's this is definitely got me.
Right. So the more fluid you can be, the more relaxed. So so that's a good intro on one of the basic self-defense scenarios you might run into, because that can be anything from a crowded light rail or a bus. Or you're just at a nightclub somewhere,
Okay.
and maybe they do mean you harm, but you don't know yet.
Got it.
And one of the principles, both in Gurdi and Kempo, the primary art that I've been studying for a lot of years, or Tech Jiu-Jitsu, any of the arts that I've personally studied, none of that would be where you just pop somebody for asking you directions. You want to make sure you don't bring the fight when there isn't one. If there is one, you want to respond effectively, but not with excessive force, right? What's the common saying? You can't fight what you cannot see.
Right.
I don't need to see you, but I do need to know where you are.
Yes.
And so let's say we're here, and we're even got like a little bit of a Muay Thai kind of punch where we got this. Well, right, and you have that here, or maybe we're like half and half, right? Right. So how can I know where you are? I have this connection. I have this connection. I can bring that across.
Right.
Right. Go ahead and use me, and you can even use me for balance. Do a lead leg kick with your right leg, and slowly, because I want to be able to walk later, kick me with your left shin. See how far I am. But you can still kick my thigh right there.
Okay.
So you can feel where I am right now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so if you have to, you can do that.
Got it.
And so one of the things you can do is if I move in, you're here, you can do the same technique that we were talking about before, or if you happen to make contact even with just here, you know where I am. So even use your left hand, you can reach out, you can even do like a lead hand jab if you know that it's already fighting. Once you find the connection, so I'll put my hands up so you don't hit me. Go ahead and hit me with your left hand. Your left hand, kind of even reach out, right? So now you know where I am. If you want to kick me, can you kick me now?
Yes.
You can kick me because you know where I am.
Yes.
Now can you kick me?
No.
Because what happens if I'm all the way out here and you try to attack me, especially if somebody has any familiar, they're gonna time that, they're gonna move in, and they're gonna take care of business.
Yes, sir.
But you want to make sure you have that connection, right?
Yes.
All right. So if you remember nothing about what it's like to fight or to defend yourself when you have no eyesight, what's the operative word?
Connection.
Connection. 100%. I'm gonna grab your right hand.
Okay.
Go ahead and make a fist. We'll go ahead and start early. Again, tilt your hips back. As soon as you feel me lessen up, I want you to, and keep that other hand back because you want to make sure that you can keep that hand up. And not so much on the top of your head, more on your, yeah.
Okay, so it's like a half cover on
Yeah,
this.
exactly, yeah, like a half triangle frame or horns. And you don't have to do that. I just like to do that. As somebody has a little more advanced experience, then we'll start focusing on guarding.
Yeah.
For right now,
I like that very much.
yeah, because right now you know you're safe because I have both hands. As soon as that comes up, you need to make sure that's there.
Yeah.
So we'll start here, and I'll make sure I'm standing correctly. I actually was twisted up. So I'm going to pull. As soon as you feel the tension release, I want you to drive that elbow forward so that you can get me to let go of your wrist, okay?
Okay.
Good. And you felt the release, you felt the timing, and you can tell where that kinesthetic sense, that's really helpful to have, right?
Yes. Yes.
So if you don't have that kinesthetic sense, are you going to know when to let go?
No.
Because what if you try to drive forward as I'm pulling?
Then I'm going to be thrown off balance.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Especially if that person maybe they did judo when they were in high school and they kind of remember a few things, but now they're kind of a drunken idiot. So
Yeah.
just because somebody has practiced martial arts doesn't mean that they have the idea of restoring peace where they go.
Sure.
Like, I hope this never happens to you, but let's say you lost your eyesight tomorrow. How confident are you going to be that you're hitting the right target on somebody? You're not sure. You might be.
Right.
You might be really on it, but what if you don't?
Sure.
You don't want to hurt your hand in the process. So one of the things you want to do is, if you're here and you want to hit me, go and hit me lightly. I'll close my eyes so you don't poke them out. Right? Is that where you thought you were going to hit?
No.
But are you still going to be okay if you were to hit me there?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to adjust a little bit. Try it again.
No. Oh, that was your forehead.
Exactly. But
it's still going to be okay.
But your hand is still going to be okay.
Yes. Yes.
So now if you're here and I have your neck and I'm punching here, do I know where you are?
Yes.
And do I know that's probably a safe target?
Yes.
Yes. So it doesn't mean that a blind person can't punch, but if you don't know, and especially if somebody's very early on in their martial arts journey or their self-defense techniques that they're learning, I tend to prefer to teach them to punch after they've learned how to find somebody.
Okay.
I mean, I'll teach them how to punch, but I won't teach them to punch early on in terms of an application technique because I don't want them to hurt themselves while they're defending themselves.
Got it.
So let's go back, and we'll go ahead and flow as smoothly as you can. We'll move at kind of a medium speed. I'm going to move in. I want you to just play with it. Try to find a movement, and I'm going to come back and I move around, and just based on the few things that I've told you and shown you, imagine that you can't see, you don't know what my intentions are.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of move around. I want you to, and then if you get to a spot, you're going to release. We're going to come back and just maybe like 30 seconds or so. We'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, you both got it. And you can hit me if you need to. You can kick me. You can come around. Go for chokes. Good. You have that. Good. Yeah, you compromised my balance there.
Good one.
All right. And we're going at a nice, relaxed speed. Nobody gets hurt. Keep breathing. Good. And you have that balance. What's here? bet. Yeah, you can use that. Come in here and relax.
That's that's amazing.
And the more you do that, though, the more you start feeling kind of where somebody is. And that's why I would say that, you know, even if you can, you know, some of the people that I've got a chance to train with, the more experienced jiu-jitsu people I've trained with, they'll jiu-jitsu spar with their eyes closed.
Wow.
And it's developed that kinesthetic sense.
Yes.
Because sometimes your eyes will fool you.
Yes. That was an amazing lesson.
Yeah, I'm glad it was a good experience for you.
A beautiful experience, and you know, if you'll pardon the pun, very eye-opening. You know?
Well, thank you.
So excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to go ahead and take my blindfold
All right,
off.
I actually just bowed, but you didn't see me.
Okay. Let me take my blindfold off so that I can. Oh wow! We traveled quite a distance.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. My wife, who also trains with me, she did some of her kata with her eyes closed, just so she could kind of glimpse what it's like for me.
Mm.
And I think she said she was rotated about 90 degrees from what she thought.
I had no idea.
And I'm sure the more you do it, I mean, that's something I still struggle with even years later.
Mm. Well, that was great. I'm going to bow to you also.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to. We're going to just take a minute, and then we'll get to the interview portion. All right?
Sounds good.
Pretty awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So we are back. We are at oftentimes the favorite part of 52 Masters for me is the interview portion. The training is great, but I always like talking to people and getting to know them a little bit better. So Sensei Joshua, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I had a great time with that lesson, and that was, you know, I'll be honest with you, it was a little frightening because I kept thinking I was going to fall, and it was, but it was great. Just. You know, all about connection and kinesthetic and just fantastic. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How did you get started in martial arts?
So I was born, 80. So I grew up with 80s, and I was severely nearsighted growing up.
Okay.
And so I didn't have a lot of money or anything like that. And two things kind of conspired. I was a fan of Star Wars a bunch, like crazy. Like I don't remember a time without Star Wars, just in terms of the time frame for me.
Okay.
And I was always fascinated by Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda. I always
Okay.
thought that was so cool, that the patient, perfect teachers that the two of them were.
Yeah, yeah.
And my mother was in a theater troupe in Santa Cruz, and they had a Shotokan karate group that would meet in the community center just before them.
Mm.
About the time that I saw them practicing, that was about the time that I became aware of the first Karate Kid movie.
Mm.
And my dad was around, but there were definitely gaps, and I kind of was always looking for that father figure. And for many of us, Mr. Miyagi was a huge influence. I wanted somebody like that in my life. But I wasn't able to do martial arts because I was at severe risk of losing my eyesight.
Okay.
And so I lost myself in stories and watched a bunch of Bruce Lee movies, and then in the late 80s, I was still of the age where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were a huge, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. I love, stories about mutants, and I love pizza.
Yeah.
And of course, what 8, 9, 10-year-old doesn't think nunchucks and wielding turtles that love pizza are awesome. So
Sure.
of course that was a big influence on me. And
Yeah.
when I lost my eyesight in early '96, just before my 16th birthday, a few months before that, we can cycle back around to that, but I didn't have to worry about losing my eyesight anymore. And then I dabbled in Kung Fu for a little bit, maybe like most of my junior year of high school, didn't really take it particularly seriously, dabbled here and there, and then started training very consistently in August of 2005, and I've never looked back. It's been an awesome journey.
How did you lose your eyesight?
So, as I mentioned, I was born visually impaired, so
Okay.
I've never had perfect eyesight. Very severely nearsighted in each eye. loss of vision in my right eye when I was about 2 or 3 years old. I was more at risk for retinal detachments, and they found out too late. My right eye was already blind by the time they found out when I was like 3 years old. If I wore glasses, I could see 2300. That's if I wore glasses. That's pretty bad.
Okay.
And as I grew up, I had a couple retinal tears, laser surgeries, things like that. And in my freshman year of high school, started getting a lot worse. Started having more major eye surgeries. You know, one surgery was supposed to be 2 hours, was 5.5. And by the time we got into the first half of my sophomore year, they didn't want me running. They didn't want me lifting weights. They didn't want me straining myself just picking up a box or something like that. And what does any 15-year-old kid do who's got lots of energy? I cranked up some Pantera as loud as it would go. Big metal fan, always have been, still am. And grabbed a pair of nunchucks, just a foam pair, just a practice pair that you would see in like a ninja costume.
Yeah.
But I clipped my good eye, like right here. Bop. And the last thing I saw was like my dimming eyesight. I was scrambling to get the phone because I was the only one home, and waiting for 911, you know, all the ambulances and everything else to come get me. And the doctors tried 2 more major eye surgeries, laser surgery, and in the course of 1 year, I had 6, I think, general anesthesia eye surgeries, 3 laser surgeries, just in that 1 year alone, and I was kind of done. And I talked to the doctor, and he said, well, we got another surgery you can try. It's about 50-50 chance of working. You'll have less eyesight, and you'll have to be just as careful. And you know, God bless the doctors for keeping my eyesight as long as I did. I was done.
Okay.
And I talked to my mom about it. My mom's also blind, different condition. And she didn't pressure me one way or the other, but I saw the full life that she had, and I realized as difficult as it's going to be, I'll choose to be blind, because then I can have, you know, and maybe I read too many comic books. I read a lot of Daredevil and things like that when I was growing up, and I figured, well, why can't a blind guy do martial arts? Now I can actually do that stuff. And you know, then I went water skiing for the first time, and rock climbing, and you know, skydiving, all the different things that I've done, and I didn't have to worry about losing my eyesight. It was actually, it's hard, but it's also freeing, and that's been a really neat experience.
So it was actually the decision to, hey, let's just do without eyesight, and it opened up all these other avenues.
Way more than I would have ever thought.
Wow. So when did you start studying with Master Scott Conway?
So it's interesting. I had dabbled, like I said, you know, here and there, and I had trained with a sensei that taught a ninjutsu style in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And in the particular organization that he was in, he knew I was moving to San Diego, and he didn't know that the one sensei that he was aware in the San Diego area that taught his form, he didn't think he would be a good fit for me. And he suggested, you know, that I try to study with somebody else.
Okay.
And at the time I was trying to reconcile, again, I was dabbling, but I was trying to reconcile my Christian faith, unconventional as it is, with my practice of martial arts, because I didn't enjoy hurting people.
Okay.
And I found an article on Master Conway in some article about Christian martial artists and what they were doing. And for me at the time, I was like, okay, I got to check this guy out. And it was 2 years after I moved to San Diego that I first started studying with him. But I knew who he was, if only just barely, by finding arts on people who had reconciled their particular faiths with their martial arts practice. Because, you know, unlike a lot of people, and you know, we all come to it different ways, when you don't enjoy harm, how do you reconcile with the possibility you could learn something that could kill someone? And that was really difficult for me to wrap my head around. And eventually, you know, of course, not that I'm perfect or completely pacifistic, but I was able to find somebody that had a guiding moral ethic. And I think whether somebody is Christian or Buddhist or whatever their orientation is, learning how to fight without some sort of framework on when it's appropriate, I think, is potentially very dangerous. And I think it's really important to have some sort of set of ethics that will help you to know when to leave it in the ring, when to leave it on the mat, you know, when to not bring a fight when there isn't one, at the same time preparing you to handle it when things go sideways. And so that was a really big part for me.
What system does he teach?
He teaches Guardian Kempo. Guardian Kempo is one of the things we say about our art. It's both the good thing, the good thing and a bad thing is we do lots of different stuff. So a Guardian Kempo practitioner will be a better grappler than somebody who is a Taekwondo specialist. They won't be perhaps as good of a kicker as somebody who practices Taekwondo. They will be a better kicker than a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist. However, almost nobody's going to out-grapple somebody who spends all their time studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's not that we are training to even compete in the ring so much as have a broad spectrum, so that we're prepared for various types of situations. And obviously there's a life philosophy that goes along with it.
So you're somewhere in the middle ground where you're well-rounded,
right?
But it suits the intention perfectly.
Correct. And again, it's more designed for self-defense rather than for say mixed martial arts competition. Though certainly somebody could apply it and kind of adjust as they needed to.
Okay. Now you also study with Sensei Mario Schaap.
Yes, sir.
So how did you meet him?
Well, for me, I'd never trained with or let alone taught somebody else who was visually impaired or totally blind. And I realized that as I started to go deeper, and this was after I had received my first black belt promotion, and was thinking about, okay, now technically I've been given this title of sensei. I'm way not prepared for this, what goes along with this. And if I'm going to help other people in my situation, I need to know how to teach other blind people. And I had heard about at the Blind Community Center San Diego that there was an adaptive martial arts program. And well, let me go check it out. Let's see what they got. And that's when where Sensei Mario was teaching. And through him, I had the experience of teaching other people who had never seen before, or people who couldn't see anymore but saw previously. And one of the things that comes to that you run into is I can give you words, and you might technically do something that follows the words that I give you, but that's not actually what I'm trying to get you to do. So it forced me to be a better communicator. It forced me to find different ways of diagnosing what somebody was doing. Because obviously if I'm teaching somebody how to use a sword, well, I can't give them a live blade right away. One, that's not safe, but also, anything, even with a dull edge, if it's I can't reach up and adjust and see what they're doing because I might get hurt. But it taught me to learn more effective ways, and also some things I hadn't thought about, things that were more applicable. And Sensei Mario, with his adaptive martial arts program that he's developed through his experience in Tang Soo Do and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the several decades of experience that he has, he broadened my awareness of what, even though he can see himself, what does it take to teach somebody who can't see you? And then, of course, it was through Sensei Mario that I also fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and obviously, some of the being a very tactile person by necessity. That's an art that I fall in love with, though I've only been studying it for a little over 6 years.
What do you think the greatest lesson from studying martial arts is that you've learned?
That I can never know everything. And I think when you try, you do yourself a disservice. Now, I love everything from the esoteric to the practical. So I'll go and not that I have a deep level of experience with it, but I would love to learn more Qigong, Tai Chi, even kind of Neigong meditation, that kind of stuff. That's really cool to me. But then also learning just some Muay Thai and some grappling and some it's for me like I love the process of learning, whether it's something that I'm really good at or whether it's something that I struggle with. But the value of it is, I think there's two things. One, I can never know everything. Master Conway, my first instructor, he said the martial arts mastery is I'm probably going to quote him wrong, but something like is an ever-increasing realization of the magnitude of your own ignorance. So like the more you know, the more you know. So for me, I used to get very discouraged. I didn't feel like I was a first degree black belt until I was a second degree black belt. I've really struggled with that because for me, my kicks are not where I want them to be, or certainly even more so when I was first newly a black belt. Oh gosh, now I got to, for me, black belts were masters and masters could fly. It's one of those things, and you kind of get to that point, you realize, oh my gosh, okay, well I got to learn. So it was humbling for me to realize I don't have to know everything, but it was also freeing. But the other side of it is the value of adversity, because martial arts, you're never going to be prepared for every situation, but you can be more prepared. And doing something that's difficult, doing something that's scary, prepares us, because life's going to throw curveballs at us. We're not going to know what's coming, but if you're, I don't want to say comfortable, but more comfortable grappling, say, somebody who outweighs you by 50 to 100 pounds, and he's got a rear naked choke on you, and you know what it's like to kind of struggle for breath for a second, and you tap out and you kind of give up and you kind of move on and keep going. That makes that if you're, say you have a day job and you have to go into a meeting, committee meetings don't bother you as much. Or if, in my case, I wish that discrimination didn't exist, but there are people who, because I'm blind, think that they need to use sign language, or that they need to speak loudly and slowly, or that somehow eyes that don't work means that I have a brain that doesn't work.
Sure.
And that, again, it doesn't mean that stuff doesn't hurt, doesn't mean it's not frustrating and not difficult, but when you find adversity that you get to choose, and then you take that adversity and you get to realize, it didn't kill me, I'm actually stronger and growing from it, then it makes it easier to withstand the adversity that you didn't get to choose. At least for me personally. I mean, maybe people's journeys are obviously going to be different, but it's made a big difference for me.
What advice would you give to other martial artists out there, perhaps your students? And I would say, whether they have some sort of impairment or not, what would you like to pass on to them?
Anyone can train. What training will do for someone, what it will mean, what it has to look like will change. So if somebody cannot walk because they have no legs, are they going to be an expert kicker? Well, probably not, unless there's something I don't know. But they can always get better. There's always some place where they can improve and grow stronger, both internally and externally. And so if somebody is training, on the one hand, they shouldn't get down on themselves if they're struggling, because everybody struggles. I don't care who you are, no matter how experienced you are as a master, no matter how new you are to martial arts, there's always going to be something that if you test yourself and stretch yourself that you will struggle at. By the same token, no one should be dismissed as being incapable of learning or training. There might be certain things that are more applicable to one person than to another. Again, as much as I like learning flying kicks and all that kind of stuff, it's not the thing that I'm the best at. I struggle with some of them, quite frankly. But also, it's fun, and I like doing it, but it's not immediately applicable to me. Grappling, close fighting, clinching, trapping, those are the types of things that are going to be way more applicable for me in a real life situation. But I can get better.
Right.
One of my students, she's I guess been training about as long as I have, but I get the privilege of teaching her. She's in her 70s. She's severely hearing impaired. She is she's gone through cancer treatment. She's not going to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter or kickboxer or grappler. Quite frankly, just even with the cancer treatment alone, just her bones are too brittle. But she's supposed to die like 4 or 5 years ago. And she gets up every day. She practices 20, 30 minutes. And maybe that's not much, but you know what? That gives her a reason to live. And so if we look at martial arts, it's got to be this narrow scope. It's got to work in the ring, or it's not worthless, or if it's worthless. Well, yeah, it has to work, but as long as it does what it says it's supposed to do, that's really, I get a little sad when I hear traditional martial artists saying, well, mixed martial arts has no class. And I get really sad when I hear, and it's a fair point, sometimes there's a little bit of that pro wrestling kind of bravado going on, and that is sad. At the same time, I also get really sad when I hear mixed martial artists or people in the kind of what they call practical martial arts world dismissing traditional martial arts as having no relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on what you want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Does it do what it says it's going to do? And who is training in it? What is their goal with martial arts?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so for our students, especially in that adaptive martial arts program, they learn balance. They get movement. You know, one of the things that happens a lot in the visually impaired community, it's an epidemic of obesity and sedentary lifestyle, even more so in some ways than people who aren't. And so movement, betterment, improvement, and you know, are they able to beat everybody? Of course not. Nobody is. But they're safer than they were. They're stronger than they were. They're more confident, more flexible, have better balance than they did. So I think we have to remember that we don't know everything, and we cannot be so devoted. Even though many of us cross-train in several styles, we still have this tendency, many of us, to dismiss people who train in a different sphere of martial arts than we do. And we just have to take a step back and realize there's a reason some of these arts have survived for hundreds, in some cases, some people would argue even thousands of years, some of the beginnings of them. And dismissing them as being irrelevant before we have figured out what are they designed to do, I think is incredibly arrogant and immature, and I think we need to kind of think more carefully before we make a critical remark.
Well, I want to thank you for being with me today. What an honor.
Thank you.
Great lesson, really thoroughly enjoyable. Learned so much, and really made a lot of sense. And you know, and honestly, I was a little out of my comfort zone. You know, I was
Sure.
You know, which is, I think, part of why a lot of our viewers tune in, because they want to see me struggle a little bit.
It's entertaining, right?
But I thought it was extremely valuable. You know, thank you for coming out here.
Glad to be here.
And you know, you're just you're a good guy, and
Thank you.
really respect you a lot.
Thank you
and,
very much.
Continued success.
Thank you very much.
And this has been 52 Masters, and we'll see you next time.